What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Alex Funderburke. Welcome back to another episode of Hitting the Field. We got a great show for you today. We got some NFL talk, some NBA talk, some MLB talk. Big trade this weekend with Nolan Arenado going to St. Louis and 50 million. Like, why are the Rockies trading money and the best third baseman in the league? We'll get into that in the show, and I got a rant for you at the end. It's going to be a great show. Stay tuned. Hitting the Field starts now.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated chance, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. The rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back, okay? Always locked in, I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another week of Hitting the Field. I am your host, Alex Funderburke. With me today is Kennedy Collins and John Alfano. Kennedy, how are you doing?
Doing really well. How are you, Alex?
I'm doing great, John, how about you? How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be back on here, and hopefully all my takes won't be cold as ice today like last time.
For sure. And I want to jump in with kind of the news of the weekend. Matthew Stafford is a Los Angeles Ram. He was traded for Jared Goff, a third-round pick in 2021 and first-round picks in 2022 and 2023. This is also the first ever time number one picks have been traded. Matt Stafford and Jared Goff were both taken first overall. Kennedy, what were your first thoughts with this trade?
Well, I think what everybody was talking about was just Jared Goff's reaction to the news, just saying that he wanted to be he's glad to be somewhere where he's going to be wanted and appreciated. So I think off the bat, it was kind of like, well, you just exposed a lot between the coach-player relationship and kind of already let us know what was going on within the Lions. So I think off the bat, I think it was a really good trade. It's kind of like everyone was saying, like an NBA type strategy where you take two different egos and kind of cross paths, kind of like a DeMar DeRozan type trade. So I think it was a really good trade just for controlling egos. But at the same time, I think looking at the offense that these two can run in both franchises, I think it's a really good trade.
John, how about you? What were your takeaways?
I was shocked it was the Rams, honestly. The most common prediction I saw for Stafford was him going to the Colts, and I thought that would fit him like a glove. So when I saw the Rams that acquired him on Saturday night, I was kind of like, whoa. And to see the return the Lions got made me even more surprised. And I know part of that is just for them taking on Jared Goff's massive contract. But still, that return was quite the haul and might lessen the pain a bit for Lions fans.
For sure. And that return is a lot for Matt Stafford. So, John, if you see what the Lions got for Matt Stafford, what do you think the Texans can get for Deshaun Watson, who is 24, I believe?
Yeah. They could get the moon for him, honestly. Like, I would think probably 4 first-round picks would be needed to even get the ball rolling, and how only a couple teams I can think of have that capital in the draft, which are the Jets and the Dolphins, in my opinion. And who knows what it'll take beyond that.
Yeah, it's crazy. And bringing it back to the Rams, Kennedy, the Rams' last first-round pick was in 2016 when they drafted Jared Goff, and they will not have another first-round pick until 2024. Will this be something that comes back to bite the Rams? Can they continue going on without first-round talent?
Well, I think the thing that works out so well is that Jared Goff is still young for a QB. So it's not necessarily that Matthew Stafford is 32. So you're not losing out on too much youth, and they still have a developing roster. So I think in that sense, you're not really missing out on a lot with missing that couple years of a first round. But in the same sense, anything can happen. We saw with Jared Goff a couple years back when they lost in the Super Bowl, and just so many other things when he had jammed his thumb, just so many other things that can happen. So it kind of is like, all right, it's a big risk to take, especially in a league like now when, people are running Kansas City type offenses. And I just think it's a really big risk that they took. I think it will probably bite them in the back eventually, but as of now, it looks like a pretty safe trade because of Jared Goff's youth, but at the same time, it's probably going to bite them in the back in the future.
For sure. John, what about you? Do you think all this trading, seemingly all of their first rounders, will come back to bite the Rams?
So far, it hasn't. So you could argue that it won't in the future, but I'm not sure how sustainable this is. If you're trading your picks for established players instead of taking a chance on rookies in the draft, that's not a bad strategy. It could work out, but I'm not sure them doing it so many years consecutively will work out for them in the long run.
For sure. And I want to move our conversation to head coaching hires. We've had 7 teams will enter 2021 with new head coaches. Jacksonville hired Florida legend and Ohio State legend Urban Meyer. The Jets got San Francisco's defensive coordinator Robert Saleh. Atlanta hired Arthur Smith from the Titans. The Chargers made an in-city hire, snagging the Rams defensive coordinator Brendan Staley. The Lions hired a tight end coach, Dan Campbell. Philly hired Nick Sirianni from the Colts. And last but not least, the Texans hired a passing game coordinator from the Ravens. Yeah, the team that doesn't like to throw the ball. David Culley. All these teams spell Eric Bieniemy differently than I do, John. Why doesn't Eric Bieniemy have a job?
I don't know, honestly. Like he has some red flags. I think there are some like background stuff in the 90s that might be giving teams red flags, but that's like 25, 30 years old. I feel like he's matured enough since then. And he's been developing the best offense in the league in Kansas City, and all of his players seem to love him. You've heard Patrick Mahomes talk about him a lot. You've heard Tyreek Hill talk about him a lot. And you've heard Andy Reid say he deserves to be a head coach. So I'm really not sure what's going on.
It's insane. I mean, Kansas City fans have to be happy because they get to keep the best offensive coordinator in the league. Kennedy, do you think Eric Bieniemy will get a job next year?
I mean, we would hope, like you were saying, he's running the best offense in the entire NFL right now. It's surprising because when you can build such a great offensive culture and you have so many guys that are buying into what you have, you would assume that you would get a job. I mean, people were saying the same thing when Urban Meyer was hired with the Jags. Can he establish a culture? I mean, you're not in college anymore, so it's going to be kind of hard to bridge that gap from college to NFL, especially as a head coach. For him, you've been coaching in the NFL for years, and you have a successful offense with the Chiefs, who are now going to a Super Bowl. So, I mean, I don't understand what more credentials you might need to get a head coaching job. I mean, we're seeing how many former defensive coordinators or offensive coordinators that have been hired with the NFL that aren't even Super Bowl type teams. So I think for him, he's being snubbed. We don't really know why. If it's stuff in the past, I mean, at the end of the day, you have the best offense in the league. And if you can bring a team, maybe like the Jags, if they didn't hire Urban Meyer, teams like that, if you can bring them to that type of caliber, the sky's the limit for your coaching.
I think my biggest thing with this is Deshaun Watson told the Texans, go get Eric Bieniemy. And you might have been able to please Deshaun Watson to the point where he would want to stay if you went and hired him. But instead you got a passing coordinator from a team who doesn't pass the ball. So I don't understand it. But John, out of these 7 coaches, who do you think is the best hire this offseason?
I've got to give it to the New York Jets and Robert Saleh. Kind of like what I was saying with Bieniemy, you heard all his players speak well of him. Richard Sherman has spoken well of him numerous times in the past, and the guy has a clear passion for the game. You see him on the sidelines, and he is just motivated and on fire whenever his guys make a play. And I think he'll do great things for the Jets.
For sure. I definitely think Robert Saleh was a great hire. Kennedy, what about you? Are you on the Robert Saleh train too?
I definitely agree, but I also think Urban Meyer works perfectly for the Jags. I mean, the Jags aren't doing much. You're 1-15, so it's only up from here. And like I said, it's going to be very interesting to see him bridge that gap from college to NFL and see if he can establish culture within the Jaguars. Luckily for him, the Jaguars don't have much culture, so they're going to be able to really grow with him. So I think it's a really good move for their entire franchise. I think it's a really good move for him. But Robert Saleh, I think, was a really good move for the Jets as well. But I'm really liking what Urban Meyers can do with the Jags.
For sure. And John, I'm going to take away your easy answer. You cannot say David Culley here with the Texans. Who, other than him, who was the worst hire this offseason?
Well, that makes it quite a lot harder. Let's think about this. I'm gonna go with Nick Sirianni, and not because I think he's a bad coach at all, but it kind of reminds me of the exact same situation that the Eagles got into with Doug Peterson. So Doug Peterson was Andy Reid's offensive coordinator in Kansas City, and as we all know, Andy Reid was with the Philadelphia Eagles for a very long time, from almost 20 years, I think. So they hired Peterson to kind of get some of Reid's DNA back in the team. And then after they won the Super Bowl, Frank Reich went on to be the head coach in Indianapolis. And now they're trying to get another version of Frank Reich as their head coach. So it seems like the Eagles are kind of in this loop of just repeating the same beats over and over again. And it started out well for Peterson, but it quickly spiraled downwards. And I'm kind of scared that Sirianni won't be able to take them back up.
For sure. And I would also go with Sirianni, but if I didn't go with Sirianni, I'd go Dan Campbell. Why are you hiring a tight ends coach to be your head coach? But all while Eric Bieniemy is still jobless. It doesn't make sense to me. John, will any of these guys be one and done? They're going to coach 1 year and get fired?
I don't think so. I mean, one and dones are extremely rare. The only one I can remember in my mind is Steve Wilkes with the Cardinals a few years ago. But I don't see any of these guys performing so badly that they get canned after 1 year.
For sure. Yeah, I don't either. The only one I could maybe see is David Culley, because if they do get rid of Watson, Houston is going to be very, very bad. But moving on, the Super Bowl is less than a week away. It's the GOAT versus the next GOAT, or as Kennedy likes to call him, the baby GOAT. Tampa versus Kansas City. It's the two of the best offenses in the league, and should be a great game. Kennedy, what are you most looking forward to?
I am most looking forward to seeing this Kansas City offense. Like I've always said, it is so fun to watch Kansas City just play and be themselves. They're a very eclectic team. You have some younger guys, some older guys, but they just mesh so well together on the field. So I'm really just excited to see what they can do against this Buccaneers defense. I'm excited to see how this Buccaneers defense steps their game up, see if they can do anything with this offense. But yeah, the Kansas City offense is always so fun to watch, whether you're a football fan or not. It's just a really great offense to watch. So I'm very excited to see what they do.
John, what are you looking forward to most in this matchup?
Like Kennedy said, I'm looking forward to Tampa Bay's defense and how they react to it. You saw in the regular season, they were torched in the first half. Tyreek Hill had over 200 yards receiving in one quarter. And then they kind of got back into rhythm and adjusted and shut down the Chiefs somewhat for the second half. And we'll see if they can carry that adjustment into the Super Bowl with them, and maybe stop the Chiefs a little bit more than they did in the regular season, giving themselves a chance to win.
For sure. And I mean, I hate to make it, we're all in agreement, but I am very curious and looking forward to seeing how this Tampa offense or defense can look to slow down Patrick Mahomes, because it really doesn't seem like anyone is able to do that. Who do you guys have? Kennedy, we'll start with you. What's your score prediction? Who's going to win?
I think it'll be a closer game than people are thinking. I think everyone's thinking that the Chiefs are just going to come in and completely sweep the Bucs. But I mean, Tom Brady's been here multiple times. He has a lot of poise. He's a great quarterback, the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. So if we all think that the offense is just going to be terrible, it's not. While Kansas City is definitely the best team in the league right now, I still think the Bucs have made it here for a reason. I think that even though it's not the best delivery that we've seen as far as offense and defense, it could have been a little bit cleaner throughout their season. I mean, Tom Brady's thrown 12 interceptions this season, but he's still going to the Super Bowl. So we're going to see. As far as score, I'm thinking within the 35-25, I think Chiefs are going to take it. I still think it's going to be probably a tough game. I think it's probably going to be closer towards the half. I think once that third quarter hits, we're going to see a completely different Kansas City offense, and they're just going to run with it. But from there, I think that's going to be a great game, but I definitely got the Chiefs.
For sure. John, what about you? Who do you have?
So this is kind of the battle of people you learned not to bet against, right? Tom Brady's been defying the odds for how long now? And I learned last time I was here when I picked the Bills to not bet against Patrick Mahomes, even if he isn't at full strength. And so I've gone back and forth a lot, but okay. My homerism wins out. I'm going to say the Bucks eke out a win, 31-30.
Hey, I mean that's 100% fair. We both went to the same high school around Tampa, so it works out. But I'm gonna come back to you, John. Who's gonna win Super Bowl MVP?
Let's go bold and say Devin White. He's been a breakout star in the playoffs. He had that monster game against New Orleans. He picked up another fumble recovery against Green Bay, and I think he'll make some plays on defense and give the Bucks an opportunity or two.
For sure. That's definitely a sleeper pick. Kennedy, who's your Super Bowl MVP?
I think it completely depends. Like John was saying, I think Devin White is, if he can play a perfect game, he is definitely in the running for that. I mean, just the defense that he plays, and he's so crucial to the Bucks defense. I mean, Jordan Whitehead has also been great for them as well, but Devin White is the core of that defense. So I think if he can play well, for sure. I definitely kind of see Kelsey winning it. I think Kelsey has just been phenomenal. He's such a big part of the Chiefs offense and just why they're winning. So I think I could see Kelsey definitely taking it, and maybe Mahomes. We'll see. I don't think that they'll give it to Mahomes only because of the Brady-Mahomes debate, but I think Kelsey, I want to see Kelsey win it. And I definitely think Kelsey can take it.
For sure. I'm going to go Chiefs 42-21. Sorry, John. I just don't see how anybody can stop this offense. But for MVP, I got a bit of a hot take. I think the Bucks will try to stop Hill and Kelsey, and I think it's going to let Hardman have a big game. So I'm going to go Super Bowl MVP, Mecole Hardman, and yeah. Moving into our last topic of segment one. I know it's probably way too early to start talking about the draft, but we're going to do it anyway because why not? So I think we all agree Trevor Lawrence is going to go number one. That's easy. But John, who do you think will be the second quarterback taken off the board?
I'll go with Justin Fields. And I admittedly have not watched much of Zach Wilson, so I don't have as good of a gauge on him. But Fields this season, he started off kind of slow, and then he had that monster game against the Clemson, and their defense is always solid, and he just torched them for 6 touchdowns and I believe over 300 yards. And I can see him going first, but it would be nice if he goes back home to Georgia and joins the Falcons if he's the third QB selected.
That would be cool. Kennedy, who do you think will be the second quarterback off the board? Are you going Zach Wilson or are you going Justin Fields?
Well, I've been keeping up with the mock drafts, and everyone's saying Zach Wilson, which I think would be great for just Group of 5 schools in general. But I definitely think I want it to be Justin Fields. I mean, we've heard a lot of talk whether you can even put him in the Heisman because of how little games he's been playing. But I think he's really shown that he is a strong quarterback and just a strong person. I mean, battling through an injury and still playing your best against Alabama. I think he's shown that he's ready for the league. He's ready to get that number 2 spot in the draft. But I mean, with Zach Wilson and what he's done with BYU, of course, they completely destroyed UCF in their bowl game. But I mean, I think I want to see Justin Fields because of how well he's performed and because I do think that he was not given the fair chance because of COVID. But I also think with what Zach Wilson is doing, coming from a Group of 5 school, he kind of deserves to be that second QB taken. Regardless, I think wherever, if Zach Wilson is the 2 or if it's Justin Fields, I think it's going to work out best for either of them. But I definitely want to see Justin Fields as number 2.
So you bringing up Zach Wilson kind of leads me into my second question. Who do you think is overrated? I'll start. I think Zach Wilson is incredibly overrated. I've watched most of BYU's games this year. I don't think he's going to translate well. I don't know why. I mean, he puts out great film. He puts up big numbers, but just something about him is like, I don't think anyone should draft this guy. But John, who do you think in this draft, who do you think is someone that is really, really overrated?
I'll go with Jamar Chase. And I don't think he's a bad player at all, but I see some mock drafts placing him as the first receiver taken above Devontae Smith. And that's just crazy to me because Chase didn't even play this year. So you don't know how well it translates from his 2019 film to now. While Devontae Smith dominated college football, putting up like 1,800 yards and winning the Heisman. So I think Smith would be the easy number one choice for a wide receiver in this class over Chase.
Yeah, no, I've seen some drafts putting Chase ahead of Smith too, and I was a bit confused. If I didn't hate Zach Wilson as much as I did, I would definitely also say Jamar Chase. But now I want to move to someone who is slept on, who's someone you think is underrated, John.
I think it's. Can I repeat and say Justin Fields? Like I think he should be
go
easy.
for it. For it.
Okay, I'm sorry, I haven't looked that far down the draft, but yeah, I'll say Fields just because I think he should be QB2 ahead of Wilson. It seems the consensus leads towards Wilson, but I think that's totally false in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with a quarterback. I'm going to say Trey Lance from North Dakota State. I think whoever ends up with Trey Lance is going to get the second best quarterback in the draft. I mean, he played in the FCS, but only had one turnover his entire college career, and that was in the first quarter of his first ever game. He had a fumble and then did not turn it over for the rest of his career. So if you're getting Trey Lance, I think you're getting the second best quarterback in the draft. I've seen some mock drafts have him going to Atlanta, and I think that's a great fit. But I would love to see him taken at number 2, going to the Jets. I think that'd be amazing, but I think they're going to take a wide receiver. Kennedy, what about you? Who's someone that is slept on?
Slept on, definitely Devontae Smith. I mean, just like John was saying, how can you put Jamar Chase, who has not played since 2019, above Devontae Smith? I mean, you have a Heisman winner with so much potential. I mean, if they put some weight on Devontae Smith, I can't even imagine what type of receiver he's going to be. I just think it's just crazy to me that he's not. And I've seen that he's probably going like 7th or 8th, which to me is insane. I mean, he just won the Heisman. But I think for sure him. And I think Penny Sewell, too, from Oregon. I think you have the best O-line player in all of college football and so many teams. I mean, I saw the Dolphins were looking to trade their pick, but I mean, Tua's been sacked 20 times this season, so of course, who wouldn't want the O-line? But I mean, we're just gonna have to see. But I definitely think Devontae Smith. It's really shocking to me how low people have him, and just to have him below Jamar Chase is just completely insane to me.
I'm with you there. I'm with you there for sure. Guys, thank you for joining me. It was fun. Have a good week, and viewers, stay tuned. We will be back with segment 2 after this break. Stay with us.
I'm in charge of the meeting this week. So you know what we're going to talk about? Basketball. The second thing we're going to talk about this week is basketball. Okay? And the third and last thing we're going to talk about is basketball.
No. Yeah. God, yeah. It's ridiculous. I want to quit. Can I quit? Take that.
Look at the screen. What are we talking about this week?
Basketball.
What's up, guys? Welcome back. Now with me, I have Jason and Nick. Jason, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Nick, how about you? How are you?
Doing good, Alex. It's a good Monday here, and I'm excited to get into what's going on in the sports world.
For sure. I don't want to start off with some baseball. I mean, big news. The best third baseman in baseball is heading to St. Louis. Nolan Arenado is going to be a Cardinal. And if that wasn't bad enough for the Rockies, Colorado is also sending $50 million to St. Louis. All for what in return, you might ask? Pitcher Austin Gomber and 2 low-level prospects. Nick, what were your initial thoughts about this trade?
I kind of was in awe, especially when we first got the reports of they were sending $50 million to 50 million back to the Rockies. I've never seen something like that before. I'm gonna have to do a big research grab to find out if this has ever happened before. But yeah, Nolan Arenado going to the Cardinals is a big deal. He teams up with Paul Goldschmidt, obviously, and that's going to be one of the better 3-4 duos in the entire MLB. And for the Rockies, I feel for the fan base because they lost Troy Tulowitzki, and obviously he flamed out because of injury, but they had to let him go. Same thing happened with Carlos Gonzalez, and now it happens with Nolan Arenado. It just seems that every start that they get, they always flame out. They don't really take advantage of it. The Rockies have never really been a World Series contender in Arenado's time there. So it's unfortunate, and the return is kind of weak, but they put themselves in that situation because they didn't really have much leverage with Arenado expressing that he wanted to leave a little bit there. And it was also a really hefty contract that the Rockies just couldn't take on anymore, and it just made it easier for the Cardinals. So the Cardinals obviously get a really big bump into their lineup, and they're definitely going to be a player in an NL Central that I think is wide open right now.
For sure. And Jason, what were your initial takeaways?
I thought that as soon as the trade went down, I thought, well, I think this is definitely going to be my pick to win the NL Central. Definitely, like Nick said, one of the better 3-4 TAMs in the lineup. Also, one of the better combos at the corner positions, especially defensively. Goldschmidt's still one of the best, and I know he had a sprained AC joint all last year, so he had a down year. Expecting him to be back to regular Paul Goldschmidt this year. Arenado, almost always right there with Machado, even if as the only contender for the best third baseman defensively in baseball. So I think this puts them as my favorite to win the division. Was my initial thoughts. I know there's a lot of parity in that division as far as, the Brewers are okay, the Cubs are okay, the Reds, we don't know what they're going to look like this year again. But just having those two and bringing back Wainwright as well is just definitely a nice stabilizer. And I think they're going to be my favorites going into this year.
Yeah, no, they're definitely my favorites too. But Paul Goldschmidt at first and Nolan Arenado at third, defensively, like that's one of the best corner infields of like all time. Like I was sitting here this past weekend thinking of like really good corner infields, and I can't think of many that are better than that. But Nick, are the Cardinals your favorite now in the NL Central? Because it does seem like it's a bunch of mediocrity, and then you kind of got the Brewers and Cardinals who they want to be good, but they're not like fully trying until this trade, obviously. But go ahead.
Yeah, I think they have to be the favorites right now with Arenado. We talked about it already. There's a lot of parity in there, and there's not exactly I would call an A team. I think there's a bunch of Bs, and I don't think the Cardinals are yet at an A. I wouldn't put them on the Braves level. I wouldn't put them on the Dodgers level, but I think they're in a tier right below that right now. And they're going to need their pitching is going to have to step up. Jack Flaherty did not have his best year in this shortened season, but there should be no concerns really with him going to his age 25 campaign. He showed that he can be a frontline ace, and I think this is the year that he shows that. But they're going to need bounce back years from a lot of guys in that rotation. Miles Mikolas is one that I'm looking at particularly. And then, obviously you got to monitor what's going on with Colton Wong. There's a lot of teams that are in on him right now. I don't know if St. Louis will be able to bring him back, but he's a really key component in that lineup as well. But looking at the rest of the division, there's not much that stands out. So with that being said, I think St. Louis has to be the front runner after this trade.
Yeah, I completely agree. Jason, what are your thoughts on like the NL Central as a whole?
I agree with what was said. I think what the key is for the Cardinals is going to be getting run production from guys other than Arenado and Goldschmidt. We saw a lot last year, and even in the playoffs in 2019, just no run production at all. They're going to need guys like Yadi Molina to hit more than 220. They're going to need Colton Wong to do what he did. They're going to need Harrison Bader to hit more than $190. I mean, these guys got to get on base. I think if they do that, they get guys on base for Goldschmidt and Arenado, they'll be in great shape. I like what I think the Reds would be my number 2 team there, even without Bauer, with just Castillo and Sonny Gray still there in that lineup. So
interesting. Yeah, no, right now I think I'd put the Cubs at 2 or the Brewers. The NL Central's weird. Like no one's spending money, and that kind of leads me into our next topic here. Does baseball have a parity problem? Because it really feels like there's like 4 elite teams, and then everyone else isn't really trying to be competitive. Cleveland is rapidly cutting payroll. The Rays are rapidly cutting payroll. The Cubs, the Rockies, they all seem to be doing the same thing. And like we said, no one in the NL Central outside of this trade is really spending money. Nick, do you think this is just like a COVID thing and people are trying to recoup money, or is this something that's going to be a problem down the line?
No, and I think it's kind of the way these teams have to do it. The Clevelands of the world, the Tampas, the Oaklands, and think about it. I mean, the last 10 years, we've seen those three teams in the postseason more often than not. You know, they found a system that works. I mean, Tampa just rode it all the way to a World Series, and even though they shed a lot of salary this year, I think they're still going to be back in the playoffs because they just always find a way. Same thing for Oakland, and I think Cleveland is definitely going to scrap around there and be around that in that 80 to 90 win margin, trying to get to the postseason. That's what they have to do. You know, the Dodgers, I think, are on a land of their own. The Yankees right there with them. But for some of these teams like this that don't have money, it's just the way it goes, really. So, I mean, I think it's great for the game. There's all these different philosophies going on how to build a championship team. There's no more, just spend the most money and it's going to work out. Yes, the Dodgers just did that, but they used a lot of analytics along the way to get there as well and get the right pieces in the puzzle. And I think you're going to see more use of that going forward. And that's why the Yankees, I mean, they haven't won a World Series in 11 years and they've spent so much money. And now the Red Sox find themselves in a downslide here of their franchise. So there's a lot of different ways to win in baseball. And I think that's good for the league overall.
So Jason, with the Indians, do you think with the Indians specifically, they're only spending about $35 million total this year, unless they make another signing down the line. Do you think baseball needs not necessarily a salary cap, but a salary floor? Because I think not spending X amount of dollars is a problem, because it really feels like the Indians are like, you know what, let's just suck this season and let's just be bad and be as bad as possible.
I don't know if that's, first of all, I don't know if that's feasible. And I don't know if that's a good idea, because they're going to have to pay Bieber or let him go. So that's their prerogative. So I don't think that'll be a good idea. And we've seen teams like Nick said, the Rays and the A's do this time after time. And I like, those are good stories. The underdog, the team that has $100 million less of a budget of a payroll is beating the big city team. And I think to the parity standpoint, I think baseball has more parity than ever. And multiple times what other sports have, even going back in the last decade, teams like the Giants winning 3 World Series with the teams that they had. The Nationals in 2019 certainly comes to mind, a team that just squeaks into the playoffs and wins it. And I think we're going to continue to see that. Last year with the Dodgers winning was kind of the first where, okay, yeah, this was the team that was supposed to win. They had the biggest payroll and they won. And that was the first year I really thought in my life of watching baseball, that happened for them to win the World Series.
Yeah, and what I do like about baseball is it is the most random sport out of them all. There was a study done and said the champion is by far the most random. And me and my roommates the other day were going through like the World Series champions, and we could only find, outside of the Dodgers winning, like 2 other times in our lifetimes where the best team won the World Series. So I do like baseball for that. But now I want to shift our focus and go into the NBA. We're about a quarter of the way through the season, and I want to talk about 2 teams that are both they both kind of shocked me so far. The Heat and the Mavs have both been pretty bad. The Heat are currently 7-12 and 13th in the East. The Mavs are 8-12 and 13th in the West. The Mavs being bad makes me happy as a Knicks fan, because the Knicks have their first round pick this year. But Nick, what have you seen out of those 2 teams so far?
I think when you speak to the Mavs, it's very easy to see. They have the superstar in Luka Doncic. They have Kristaps Porzingis, who people may think he's a 2 in this league, but he's playing like he's a 3, borderline a 4 on a championship team. And then Tim Hardaway, he's a nice player, but he can't be a 3. He cannot be a 3 on a team that even let alone wins a championship, not even close, make the playoff barely, maybe in the East, but they're in the West. And this is how it was going to be for Dallas. They can have the superstar, they can have the great coach and Rick Carlisle, they can have the great owner Mark Cuban, but it happens on the court and they just don't have the depth to win it all yet. And I think these next couple of off seasons are going to be very important to see Dallas if they're going to take that next step to get into championship contention. For Miami, it's a totally different story. They've been just dismantled by COVID and then injuries to Jimmy Butler throughout the season. They just really haven't had a chance to get their whole lineup going. I think they've only played like 3 or 4 full games with their finals lineup intact. So I can't really put much stock into Miami. It's just unfortunate luck. There's still a large part of the season left, and the East is weak once again. So I think Miami, once they get over these COVID issues a little bit, get Jimmy Butler going in the right direction, I think they're going to get right back into the playoffs, and I think they'll be a force in the playoffs when we get there.
For sure. And how do you go about fixing this, Jason? Do you think the Mavs need to make some moves to get depth?
Yeah, I think that it can definitely go get a frontline guy to be there too. I agree with what Nick said about Kristaps. Is just not a number 2 guy. I think they should go get a point guard, a better point guard to lead and, take some of the responsibility off of Luka. Because like Nick said, if it's not Luka's night, then their chances of winning, being led by the other guys are just very slim. And I think it would be very good for them to take some of that pressure off of him, especially how young he is, knowing that, he doesn't have to drop 50 for them to have a chance or whatever, or just shoot a good percentage. And for the Heat, I think it's just getting healthy. Like Nick said, they're only 19 games into the year. And I think this is a team that can do this as far as they have a lot of depth, and that was on full display in the last playoffs and in their road to the finals. That once they get healthy and once they get all these guys, they'll be able to get right back in the playoff mix. And I think they'll finish, top 4 or 5 in the playoffs once all's said and done.
For sure. I think the Mavs should go get someone like a Bradley Beal, give him some scoring, because I think Bradley Beal can be that number 2 guy. What do you think, Nick? Who should the Mavericks try to go get?
The problem is I just don't think they have the assets to get anybody right now. Who do they have? If you were right now, who do they have to give up right now to get a star? I'll ask you, Alex. Who do you think they have? Who do you think they have as the ability to go get somebody?
Yeah, no, that's the thing, is they don't have anyone. They don't have picks. They gave my Knicks their first rounder this year. So as long as the Mavericks keep being bad, I'm going to be happy, because the Knicks might end up with 2 lottery picks. But yeah, no, they don't really have anybody. They are a bunch. It's Luka with like a bunch of guys who would be like 5s and 6s on a championship caliber team. So you'd have to trade all your future picks.
Yeah, I think this is just right now. The Mavericks are just kind of they're in a state of lull right now. They just got to finish the season out. Luka's going to do Luka. He's going to be an MVP candidate when it's all done. He won't win it because they're not going to make the playoffs, but they have to wait till the offseason comes. They need to evaluate what they're going to do with Kristaps Porzingis, and they have got to get a guy who can score on the wing. It has to happen. That small forward position has been killing them. I almost feel like if they still had Harrison Barnes, it would help a little bit more because he's been playing solid with the Kings, but that's another story for another day. I think the Mavericks right now are just, if there's nothing really they can do, I think, at the deadline.
They're in like a holding pattern, because like no one is playing good outside of Luka, and they just paid Kristaps was it $150 million, and that's looking like a terrible signing. But Nick, I want to get your biggest surprise so far this season, both positive and negative. We can start with positive first. So who's your biggest surprise?
My biggest surprise is honestly Utah, and that may not seem like such a surprise with the depth and the team that they have, but I just wasn't expecting first in the West. I mean, come on now. I mean, I know Shaq said that Donovan Mitchell 2 weeks ago very controversially said, Donovan Mitchell wasn't ready to take that next step and said it to his face. I wasn't there at that point, like Shaq said, but I didn't think he was in that tier where he could lead somebody to a first seed, and he's done it. I have to say, he has done it. And he's definitely had help. Rudy Gobert has seemed to shut up a lot of people that have been talking about him, like Shaq. He's been great down low. And then of course they have so much depth there. And Mike Conley's been, I think, really underrated this year, which has been on par for his career. So the Jazz definitely have surprised me a lot, and I just did not see them getting to a first seed and hanging with the Lakers. And we'll see if they can hang with the Lakers when we get to playoff time.
Yeah. And Jason, how about you? Who's your biggest positive surprise so far this season?
My biggest positive will go with the Cleveland Cavaliers at 9-11, seventh in the East. Just wasn't really expecting much more than a bottom seller season for them. But I mean, Sexton and Garland are very fun guard, just absolutely fun to watch. Both of them, the way they work in and out. And I think they're going to be very, very good with them for a long time. And we're just starting to see the things that to come for the Cavs. For my disappointment, I'll go with the Pelicans. Just bottom of the division. I think they're second to last in the West, and with guys like Bi, Brandon Ingram, Zion, Lonzo, just expecting a lot more from them. And I'm not really even sure what the issue is with them as far as you look at the stats and you look at their shooting percentages. They're pretty good. Their turnover margin is not bad, but just got to find ways to close out games.
For sure. And for my biggest surprise, I'm going to go with my Knicks. I mean, 9-12, they're half game out of the 8 seed right now. I mean, no one expected them to be this good, and they're being led by a rookie off the bench, Emmanuel Quickly, who may or may not be brought up in my rant in the third segment. But Nick, who is your biggest disappointment so far?
I think disappointment is a little harsh for this team, but I would say a little underwhelming. I'll put it that way. And I'm going to go with the Atlanta Hawks. They might have been the winners of the offseason here, bringing in a Bogdanovich and getting a Capella in there as well. They brought in a lot of guys, and we thought they had one of the best starting fives on paper. Right now, they're 10-9. They're just average. And when I watch them, they don't jump off the screen to me. And amidst everybody that came in, I mean, DeAndre Hunter has actually been the second leading scorer on the team behind Trae Young. So that's been great for his development. He got injured last night, so he's going to be out for a little while now. So that's not going to help also. So disappointing, maybe not the word, but definitely not where I thought they'd be. I thought they'd be somewhere in that 3 seed range right now in the East. And right now they're just clinging to the 6 seed, and they're looking like a team that probably would go one and done in the playoffs. And I don't think that's what they imagined when they brought in this whole assembly of players.
For sure. They're definitely someone I expected a lot more out of with Trae Young and that young core that they have. They could be exciting down the road, but right now they're not. I think my biggest disappointment has to be the Washington Wizards. I mean, when they made that trade for Russell Westbrook, I thought him and Bradley Beal would be a pretty good 1-2. And I'm not saying I was expecting them to be like a top 4 seed or anything, but I was expecting to be like in that 5 or 6 range, and they're 4-12 right now. Half of their wins came against Brooklyn. And that win last night was very impressive. Down 5 with like 8 seconds left, and you win that game. So really impressive win for the Wizards. But I mean, sitting at 4-12 right now, when I expected them to be a playoff team, is rather disappointing. But I want to thank you guys for joining me. It was a great show. Viewers, stay tuned. I have a rant coming up in the next segment. Thank you guys, and we'll see you later.
Good morning, fellas, except for Andre.
KG in the building.
James Harden is a stat pack.
That is not, you're right.
He's the best scorer.
He has 120 straight points now. Bro, 120 straight points now. He doesn't back.
All right, let's do this. Let's get down to business, guys.
He's like Russell. He still got Aaron Gordon, PJ Tucker, and them boys. Come on now. What about Carl?
Tom Brady is the son.
Facts. I think it's kind of special, though.
What? What are you talking about, man? Crazy, man. Don't ever say that. This is your dad.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the show. I want to thank all my guests for joining me. We had a great time, great discussions, and I can't wait to see them again next week. This next segment, I had to change my shirt for. It's the most important segment in the history of hitting the field. Actually, that's putting it lightly. This is the most important segment in the history of mankind. Emmanuel Quickly. I mean, what else do I need to say? I think that's really enough. I mean, I can just end the show right here. But I mean, I guess I'll keep going. Emmanuel Quickly, the greatest basketball player to ever grace the hardwood, and it's not close. The float goat, the bringer of hope to Knicks fans everywhere, your favorite player's favorite player, the man Michael Jordan and LeBron James look up to, the man so quick that it's his last name. If he was on your team as a kid, he'd be your mom's favorite player, not you. The man whose stock is higher than AMC, GameStop, and Dogecoin combined, but not even Robinhood can shut him down. Yes, Immanuel Quickley. He's the first player in New York sports history to be underrated. And since no one wants to talk about him on the national stage, I'm here to start his campaign for Rookie of the Year, MVP, Hall of Fame, and yes, even GOAT status. Over his last 4 games, Quickley is averaging nearly 22 points off the bench, nearly 4 rebounds off the bench, 3 assists off the bench, 3 threes per game off the bench, all while shooting 45% from the floor off the bench, 43% from 3 off the bench, and 95% from the line off the bench. And if I haven't made it abundantly clear yet, he's doing this from the bench. Tibbs, let my man start. COVID would end, world hunger would be cured, and we would have world peace if you just let Immanuel Quickley start. He's the first Knicks rookie with back-to-back 25-point games off the bench. Only 3 rookies in Knicks history have scored 25-plus points and more than 6 times in their rookie season. And that was Patrick Ewing, Bill Cartwright, and Willis Reed. If you know basketball, you know that these are legends. Quickley has 25-plus in 3 of his last 4 games, and it's almost a lock that he'll become the 4th Knicks rookie to accomplish this feat. And it's not like he's doing this against scrubs either. He dropped 25 on the Clippers in just 27 minutes. He was doing so good in the 4th quarter that they had to put Kawhi on him just to try to slow him down. And just last week, he put 31 on Dame's head in Portland and nearly let it come back all by himself. When you look up the word bucket in the dictionary, it's just a picture of Immanuel Quickley. And remember how a few weeks ago I said that New York will always and forever be a Knicks town? Well, allow me to quote an NBA talking head. Nets got Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and James Harden. And the most popular NBA player in New York City right now is Immanuel Quickley. At the time of the draft, CBS rated the pick of Quickley at 25 as a D+. How's that one working out for you, CBS? Do me a favor, keep rating the Knicks moves as D+. I truly, truly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Bottom line is Immanuel Quickley is well on his way to being a star in this league and should be the Rookie of the Year favorite, yes, over LaMelo Ball. What he's doing for the Knicks right now is something I've longed for in my 21 years on this earth. Start paying attention to this man and get on the bandwagon now, because for the first time in a long time, Knicks fans everywhere have someone to have hope in. Immanuel Quickley, the athlete all athletes want to be. And that'll do it for our show this week. We have a great lineup of shows coming out. Stay tuned and be easy.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back, okay? Always locked in, now I don't got time to lax.